Big news.
Dude, what the actual f? Can you seriously not come in any louder?
Wait, why the hell do you sound like you're gonna read a Reddit story to me?
Never mind all that. What the hell do you want?
Smite 2 is actually playable now.
Who?
Smite 2 is...
Ha! Got him.
It's been over a year since Smite 2 was announced, and boy do I have a lot to cover, even after not having made a video on the game in over...
Smite is a game that means a lot to me. It made me begin this very YouTube channel, but I can't say that Smite 2 in the past has inspired me to make videos about it in the same way that the first game did. And it's not for lack of trying. I've been brainstorming video ideas on the game for so long, but when I look at them I think, what the hell have I brought upon this cursed land? And I've genuinely been enjoying the game these past couple months with my friends. And let me tell you, the game is in a much better state than the initial alpha weekends. That's for fucking sure. And at a time when it seems like it's Jover, I want to sit and talk about the current state of the game. Hell yeah, because who doesn't like sitting on a sinking ship? Don't get me wrong, I'm nowhere close to being on the Doomer train like some people are, but I want to try and be as honest as I can about where the game stands. So what the hell do I think? I absolutely hate the interact mechanic. After a lot of the interact system was removed in favor of traditional objectives and camps, I kind of moved to a more neutral position on it. It's take it or leave it at this point, and for buffs in particular, a lot of my initial concerns with the system were indeed overblown. Cringe, in fact. There's still a lot left to be desired from a system like this, but it's good to see that the new gods Mordred, Hecate, and Aladdin make use of it in some form or another in their kit. In regards to the teleporters, I still say to remove them from the game. They serve no purpose other than giving rotational power for very little cost, especially with the potential steal of the back camps. If the solo laner wants to gank the duo lane, there should be a time commitment or experience loss for going across the map to gank. And it also remains true that warding that side of the map has less inherent value because most ganks come from the actual jungle from the jungler, leaving you more exposed to the solo laner if they choose to rotate. And as I see them, the teleporters are just vestigial organs of a time when Smite 2 was in a much worse state, and they continue to fester like a ruptured appendix. I do not like the loss of Smite's unique art style. The art style of Smite 2 has come a long way since the initial reveal, but still remains a little generic looking, at least in Conquest. The effect of the change is much more noticeable on the arena map and the joust map, but the props and layout of the Conquest map still scream Unreal 5 slop. I'm not going to complain without any examples though. First is the stealth grass. It's probably the biggest offender when it comes to the clash of art style. It seems unchanged from the early alpha, and while the chaos side of the map has changed, the stealth grass hasn't. Imagine walking through ambered colored fall forest and seeing some green lush grass that you'd see in spring and summer. You'd think it's out of place, and it certainly is here. Next is the lack of interesting set pieces. One of my favorite parts of a new season of Smite was seeing how the map changed. And while it's not going to be appreciated by the broader audience of Smite, the whimsical elements of the map made the game feel more alive than Smite 2 currently feels. I liked how the solo side of the map was more volcanic, destroyed, and wild, while the Gold Fury side of the map was more settled. And after months of not really knowing why the jungle felt off to me, I finally came to an answer, and that's foliage density. In Smite 1, the jungle felt like a jungle, rather than an open air lane with a couple rocks in the way. The solo side of the map was dense and dark, which added to the dangerous feeling of walking to the jungle late game to probe for the enemy team. None of these core aspects have been changed following the recent Conquest map updates though, and this is because they focus more on new mechanics in the jungle camps and major geometry changes. And with a lot of their environment artists gone, I don't think this is going to change anytime soon.
Our current plan is we're just going to kind of throw some more stuff into Conquest gradually and improve it over time versus an all new map right now, but we probably will come back to another all new map at some point in the future.
I feel as if the change for the sake of change, especially when it comes to the items, is unnecessary.
Rejoice, for they have taken the criticism to heart. I'm not the only one that was concerned about the naming conventions of items that already existed in Smite 1 being changed for the sake of change. The current problem with items though is less superficial. There are very few items, unless you're a hunter. The promise of Smite 2 brought along with it the promise of more build variety, and while on paper it seems like there is more build variety because the magical and physical wall was torn down, this can't be further from the case. Most builds in Smite 2 seem to devolve into a few different types that focus around what the auto builder suggests with slight deviations here and there. Another issue that rears its head is the lack of counters to certain items like Hasten Fatalis or attack speed crit builds, with a notable example being the exclusion of items like Midgardian Mail, Old Spectral Armor, or Old Nemean Lion. And all this is to say, tanks fucking suck. Before I begin, I'll address the elephant in the room. Post Princess Bari, the release schedule is going to slow down significantly from the initial promise at the beginning of the year, and this is due to the team size shrinking dramatically after the mass layoff event. However, this doesn't affect the optimism I have for the game going forward. And with that being said, let's talk about gods. For the gods in particular, I think that there's a healthy array of characters to play, but there's also a discussion to be had that builds off of the items. As more gods are added into the game, the lack of specific counters becomes way more apparent. Gods like Poseidon were strong in Smite 1, but there were many different ways that he could be countered through team composition and smart item/relic usage. And this is where my Gunnar expertise finally comes into play, Aphrodite.
My name is Skylar White, yo.
Aphrodite's inclusion in the first 50 gods is polarizing to say the least. She's one of the biggest lightning rods to the issue I just highlighted. In Smite 1, there were a lot of ways to deal with an Aphrodite. Poash, 100% anti-heal, Cerberus, anti-heal items having stronger effects like Contagion, strong support shutdown CC like Ganesh Silence. And I can see why with all this, to the people who don't play her regularly like I do, she seems incredibly overpowered, especially with the lack of a cooldown cap in Smite 2. But even as an Aphrodite main, it's unhealthy for the game to continue without a fair way to counterplay against her. And in no way does this mean I'm advocating for gutting her kit just for the sake of gutting it. Moving on, God aspects are an interesting addition to the game that allows for much more flexibility in God playstyles without changing the core character too much. But for a large portion of the aspects that we have received, they are either unplayable like Loki, or better in every way like Mordred. If aspects are to be seen as a successful mechanic in the game, more time might be needed to consider the impact or lack thereof of an aspect before pulling the trigger and giving players time to stew on it when it's far too late to change it without pissing someone off. Finally, I am able to play Joust with my buddies. Having only Conquest and Arena to play made it hard to teach new players the mechanics of the game without being too overwhelming. I will always maintain that the best mode to teach a new player Smite will always be Joust, since it teaches them about sieging, comboing off your team, limited jungle play, contesting camps, and it provides all of this in a one-lane 3v3 compact experience. Joust is what made me and all of my friends start playing Smite. There's also a feeling that I have that something isn't quite right with the game, like something is majorly missing. And it could just be a buildup of the small things that are missing from the game that kind of add into this big hole in the game. Stuff like not being able to see your team in the lobby, a lot of the god animations that added flavor to the game, missing special animations for skins. I may have not used the dances, but the special skin interactions I used all the time. There's also the lack of being able to see builds after the lobby closes, and lack of loading screen art when you're loading into a game. However, as a tangent to this, the developer transparency on these things has been incredible. I'm just going to say that Titan Talks have been a massive success in terms of keeping me engaged with the development of Smite 2. The show offers a platform for the community to speak directly to the people actually making the game rather than throwing their thoughts onto the Reddit tire fire. Or YouTube. And I know from personal experience that the devs do check the Discord for game-breaking bugs. And they will let you know when they fix your issue in particular. The devs removing a large section of the curtains to let the player base as a whole see what they're thinking allows us to steer the game in a better direction as a community rather than just a select few. To wrap things up, I think the game is in a very good place, but there's still a ways to go before it can be considered finished. And this doesn't mean that one can't have fun playing the game as it is. Hell, I have 300 hours mainly this year alone. And now that a majority of the characters I like to play are finally in the game, I will continue to enjoy it for another 5,000 hours just like Smite 1. I will also continue to try and make videos on Smite 2 in the future, at least until my Adobe subscription is ripped from me.
Oh hey buddy, what the hell is this?
Oh come on, I'm just slamming a couple League games. What's the problem with that?